All right, hello everybody. We're delighted to have you today for our webinar, Make Your CLM Work for You. My name is Matt Calabro. I'm a Senior Product Marketing Manager here at LinkSquares. But very fortunately, we have Sam Nickerson on the line who'll be doing most of the talking today. Sam is one of our technical solutions attorneys, and we're delighted to have her.
Yeah, great to be with you guys today. Like Matt said, my name is Sam Nickerson. I'm a technical solutions attorney at LinkSquares, which is a really fun job here, kind of similar to a sales engineer. I am a licensed attorney, so I get to bring my former practice experience with me onto calls and showcase the product to lots of different people like you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us, Sam. So a few things you're going to learn today. Number one, how to effectively begin your CLM journey. Onboarding a CLM isn't like flipping a switch. At LinkSquares, we try to make it as much like that as possible, but there is a lot of legwork that goes into things initially, and really the prep work you do beforehand can really translate into the value you see after you onboard. So it's really important to take those things with due consideration. We'll go through some of those things today. The second one, how to prepare for future growth. So as you look to the next year or maybe the next funding round, how can you ensure that, number one, you're putting processes in place now that can really scale later, both for your team and the organization more generally? And number two, how can you leverage your CLM to really help your company achieve those goals, whether it be just general growth, whether it be an M&A event, whether it be a funding round. So we'll go into that a little bit as well. And then finally, beyond legal considerations for cross-functional success. It'd be great if it was just legal that you had to worry about, right? But when it comes to the company, you also have to take into consideration some other teams, finance, marketing, he says sheepishly. So it's important to think about what those other teams need from legal, and then you can have a productive partnership and ensure overall company success, but also customer success. And so let's set the stage here. When we talk about CLM, that's contract lifecycle management, and this is the life cycle. So number one, we start with drafting, because in order to manage a contract, somebody has to actually write the thing at some point. We move on to execution, and this is the ballpoint pen execution, not like the Henry VIII type of execution. And so you actually have to sign the contract by both parties, and then it becomes enforceable. And then also the management. So that signed contract needs to be stored someplace and then made accessible. So that's like pretty simple, right? But as you dig into each stage, you realize just how much there is to consider. So for drafting, do you need templates for self-service drafting? If so, who needs access to those templates? If it's sales, do they need a Salesforce integration in order to utilize them? How do you handle non-standard clauses? Who needs to approve those, and what other stakeholders from the company need access to that drafting platform? Even for something as ostensibly simple as execution, do you have a tool that's used and accepted by your counterparties? Does it allow reassignment of contracts if necessary? That comes up a lot. And then also for management, what kind of reports will other teams need when you're managing these contracts? What data do you need to pull from those contracts to create those reports? What are you doing with your legacy contracts? I'm sure you have a bunch of them sitting in a shared drive somewhere or an email account. How do you bring those into your repository? How are you getting insight into your prevailing terms? You probably have a master agreement with orders and amendments underneath there. And how do you understand what you're responsible for today, not when the contract was initially signed? And what do you need to help get through an M&A event or fundraising round? A lot of things to consider for this.
Perfect. All right. So we'll start off today just talking about how to effectively begin your CLM journey. When you're beginning this contract lifecycle management journey, it's important just to identify the current status of your organization's contract management, the processes you're using or even lacking to stay organized today. It's key to take inventory of what's working, what isn't, what's your company's contract volume and needs, especially in the legal function. It's important to be honest. What are we doing well and what are we not doing well? Are there systems in place, and who are the key stakeholders that need to be satisfied with how the company's operating? Is the legal function today all that it could be? In this consideration and in the legal function within a company in general, obviously, very important to understand the types of agreements that your company is tasked with creating and managing. In my former life as a practicing attorney and at a prior job, I was at a firm who managed a large commercial real estate division. So I ended up working with a lot of different financial and lender agreements We'd often be signing dozens of new agreements each day. Sometimes I'd sign a dozen agreements in one day. And then the process of managing contracts in folders within a shared drive was just growing too cumbersome and time consuming as that commercial division within the firm was rapidly expanding. Though the company was doing a great job just drafting off of standard templates and building good rapport with different clients, they were approaching an inflection point. And in my experience with my time at LinkSquares, I've heard truly more stories like this than I can count. So as you begin and continue that preliminary CLM evaluation, again, key to determine which team or teams are requiring a solution here. Is it your contract creation team, the people that are actually in the trenches negotiating those agreements? Is there attention required for your standard templates? Do we need more structure when we receive an intake agreement from a third party? And then even after that agreement has been signed and it's living in some form of a repository, it's key to consider the reporting needs of the company and where you might need visibility, even in where you'd like to be in the future. Where is the company at today? Where would they like to be? And what legal and contract-based questions need to be answered in order to get there? Final component to really consider here and what's wise to consider for your in-house function is how CLM can integrate with an existing tech stack, if any. Is your sales team leveraging Salesforce or working with a CPQ tool? Does finance or even HR and marketing, like Matt mentioned, work with different tools that could really benefit from that centralization and understanding that a CLM can provide? With the right platform, that implementation, integration, and onboarding process overall should be something that's somewhat seamless. With that, we can go to the next slide and talk about once you've actually arrived at a CLM and arrived at a CLM process, how can you prepare that process for future growth? Again, once you've set a standard process in place, the question becomes, how can we grow this CLM solution to continue to meet our needs as a company throughout each new stage of growth? Obviously, for most all, if not every organization, the goal is that you continue to grow bigger, better, more efficient, and more profitable. So the question for your legal compliance contracting teams in managing the contracts that are ever evolving is to identify how to meet the needs of the organization and its people throughout those different growth stages. Something that I briefly mentioned earlier on is that during these different stages of growth, teams often reach an inflection point where the status quo, the way they've been running their process, needs to be revisited. Part of the legal function and part of truly being responsible in that contract management task is the evaluation and reevaluation of whether or not the way that the team is currently doing things is suiting the needs of the company and its ever expanding goals. What can we be doing in the legal function to extract even more data in order to protect against risk and then build better contracts in the future? It's important to aggregate data in anticipation of those future growth events, diligence, even funding rounds, IPO or other acquisition events. Having that data in one place is absolutely vital. And then that final talking point for us today is, considering beyond the legal team. How can we attain cross-functional success for the company today? CLM, and especially in these growing companies, it's no longer just a legal tool. It's actually an enterprise software that's giving your company access to data across many departments. It has, again, that cross-functional value. When data is democratized and accessible to other units within the company, it can empower people to make decisions based off of what's actually happening. Legal then can transform from being sometimes known as a black hole of information, can transform into a strategic partner that's able to shed light on and add value to truly all areas of the business, whether it's your sales team, finance teams, compliance, HR and marketing, different product and service lines. You have the ability to add value again to the different areas of the business. And now we've talked just a little bit about your CLM evaluation. What I can do here is just give a brief overview of how a good CLM tool like LinkSquares can take your company's process to the next level. A good CLM is a tool that's going to provide organization and then ready visibility into your contracts, not only showing you the different types of agreements in their groups, but also giving a ready presentation of the content and key language that's actually within those agreements. It's important, again, to have all of your contracts in a centralized location, especially as you're considering the expansion of the company, just because, the company reaches new stages of growth, it is really important for there to be a single source of truth. And it's far too often where smaller companies will attempt to manage contracts just within their own department. Maybe sales keeps their particular agreements in one place, finance another. But as you, again, reach that inflection point, it becomes absolutely vital to have a centralized location where all of your contracts are being stored and just giving you, again, that ready access into your key operative covenants. Another character trait of a good CLM is that it's going to be able to present the data within your agreements in various palatable ways to the organization. Some place where you can present dashboards that highlight key content both about what's in your repository and then even dive deeper into the key content within your particular agreements. In another vein, it's very important also that a good CLM is going to present KPIs related to your drafting efficiency overall, showcasing how the team can help address any bottlenecks in the contract drafting process today, and then get favorable agreements signed faster going forward as you continue to build out that process and add value to the organization. Finally, a good CLM is going to assist with the contract drafting process. Again, having the awareness of what you've agreed to in the past, letting that insight drive a more intuitive contract drafting and contract negotiation in the future. Again, all about centralization and just visibility for the other units within the business. A good CLM is going to centralize that negotiation process and provide, the ability for your teams cross-functionally to collaborate and work together in order to get agreements signed and move the business going forward in the future. Additionally, we want a good CLM to be able to integrate with an e-signature solution, ideally a solution that will close the loop between your contracts in flight and your contracts that have actually been executed and signed. Again, providing full communication and visibility into that contract's lifecycle as a whole, and helping your organization build better agreements going forward. A good way, of course, to weigh the value of that CLM tool is to assess this process from start to finish. What are our contract needs from even just drafting an agreement? Are we working off of our own templates? Do we need to set a better standard process for our intake workflows? Once contracts get signed, where are they going? Are they living in someone's email? Are they living in a shared drive? How can we, again, aggregate those agreements and the data within them in order to make that management process something that's seamless and something that can bring the organization peace as it's even, ever expanding and going towards its goals. From that, I can stop sharing my screen and we can have a little bit of Q&A time.
That sounds perfect. I will take back the control here and open up the questions tab. So let's see. A couple good questions have come in, which is great. Here's the first one. I think the demo really opened the floodgates here. So how can I tailor my CLM tool to my specific needs? I think this one probably, again, will really depend on your specific company and aspirations. But Sam, any thoughts on that, on tailoring a CLM tool to specific needs?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that process, like tailoring to the specific needs, begins with an understanding of your company's goals and what types of agreements the company is obligating itself toward. Is it sales agreements, purchase agreements? Are you working with a lot of, personal data? Are you getting NDAs signed every 30 minutes? Having an understanding of where your company is going is probably the best place to start in order to understand how to tailor a CLM to that purpose. Again, as you manage different types of agreements and aim to set out a standard process, it's good to have that understanding of what the company needs and then where the company is wanting to grow, and then allow that contract management solution to fill in the gaps and help carry you to that point.
And to that point, actually, this one is a good follow-up to that. Do you have any advice on how to get buy-in from key stakeholders when purchasing a CLM system? And then who do you work with internally? What other teams benefits? I think maybe taking that first question first, in terms of the other key stakeholders who you need to work with.
Yeah, that's a great question. And something that comes up a lot, even when I'm showing the product to different legal teams, is that they'll need the executive buy-in. They need approval from IT. They need sales, even their budget, in order to like make the solution work. So I think understanding that a good CLM is going to, like we discussed, provide that cross-functional value, cross-functional insight into processes and awareness of risk. Just understanding how vital contracts are to the life of an organization is something that's going to really contribute to getting buy-in from those other executives, from your C-suite and other key stakeholders within the company. Is understanding this isn't just something for the legal team that's going to make their lives easier. It's something that's going to protect the company as it's growing, scaling, acquiring other companies, getting acquired, raising money. It's really, again, vital to have that understanding of truly where your company is at and being held in terms of its contracts, and then communicate that in a way where you can get that executive buy-in.
Yeah, and to kind of fast follow on that question, you mentioned the other teams. So we have one of these LinkSquares Yeti mugs, and it has a little quote, I think, from our CEO that contracts rule everything around me. So I don't think there's a team that is not touched by contracts. But in your experience, Sam, working with prospects and with customers as well, what are the teams you see that are most involved with the legal team, the ones who are most requesting different type of reports, different types of data, or accelerating things on the pre-signature side?
Yeah, so I think the really obvious answer to that question is the sales team. And even for companies like LinkSquares internally, where I sit fairly near the sales floor when I'm in the office, and our sales team here is doing their darndest to get contracts signed every single day if they can. There's different, NDAs that need to be signed before we enter certain conversations. And then, of course, terms of service that need to be signed when a purchase is made. So clearing up that communication between legal and sales and building an integration like the one that LinkSquares has with Salesforce that allows the sales team to work within a tool that they're comfortable and that they're already living in, and still communicate and collaborate with the legal function, and even initiate contracts from within that Salesforce instance that immediately flow into finalized for legal's review, just closing that loop between two very, very important teams within an organization in terms of not only getting agreements signed, but just giving that broad visibility into what happens after signature. I think that's something that I truly love showing in product demonstrations when I get to demo that integration, just because it's such a game changer to be able to enable your reps and empower them to create contracts using a tool that they're comfortable, ensure that legal is able to provide that requisite review and approval before that contract gets signed. And then once that agreement is living in the repository, the ability to push fields of data back into Salesforce, like when this contract is set to renew, how many opt-out, is there an opt-out day where the counterparty would have to give notice in order to opt out of our contract, empowering sales to be aware of those key dates, and then likewise saving time from legal in order to keep them from having to answer those questions for hours each day is just, again, a game changer.
Awesome. And to that point, in fact, around best practices, around the way you can really leverage your CLM, one question that came in from Mindy. Where can I find a demo course of LinkSquares tools and functions? So I can speak to the customer portion, but from a sales perspective, what's the process there, Sam?
In order to
Get a demo of LinkSquares.
Oh, that is a great question. I would love to show a demo to you anytime you'd like. But I think, you know, there's even a portion on the website where you can submit a demo request. Or again, if our sales reps find your name, they will call you and ask if you'd like
Yeah,
to see
absolutely.
it.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So I think, yeah, if you go on the website, you can request a demo through there. Also, you have our names. Feel free to send us an email. We'll be sure to set it up. That's if you don't have LinkSquares. If you do have LinkSquares, definitely reach out to your customer success manager. You can reach out either to success@linksquares.com or your specific CSM. They'd be more than happy to take you through. I know, like, we get that a lot from customers who have maybe had LinkSquares either for a few months or a few years, but either way, they have their processes in place. But it can be very kind of exhilarating almost to kind of see what's new in the product and also new and creative ways of utilizing the product. You may have a process that works really well for you, but there's a lot of knowledge sharing that goes on across our customer community and between the customers and the product team and customer success team. So we're learning new things every day too about the way people are utilizing the products, and we're always happy to share that with you. So you're getting really the maximum amount of value out of the product. So definitely reach out to CS, and we'll get you squared away on that one. And with a couple more minutes, let's jump through maybe 2 more questions here if we can. Let's see. Do you have to use your own templates, or they are in the platform already? So from a pre-signature side, in LinkSquares finalized, what's the process for creating templates, Sam?
Yeah, great question. So what we'll do if you're, again, working primarily off of your own templates is actually help you build those out within the system so that drafting contracts is, even more efficient. Essentially just a couple clicks can insert that information within the contract that's subject to change, like the counterparty and maybe other key clauses. And then you can essentially draft contracts, again, just at the touch of a button. Matt brought this up just a second ago. For LinkSquares customers, you have access to a customer success manager whose entire goal is to help make your LinkSquares experience successful and enjoyable and something that benefits the whole team. So what that CSM can do for you is help build out those workflows within the system. So you don't even really have to think about drafting off of your own paper. You can essentially just answer a couple questions and then poof, there's a contract right in front of you.
Yep, and I'll say those are very easy to self-service build the actual templates and then also use those for self-service contracting. I'll just bring up one example. We did recently a case study with OmniTrax, wonderful customer based out of Colorado in railroads, and they have a lot of templates. They have, I think, 40 templates that they use very frequently. And so I think their CSM basically ran their contract manager through the process of creating 1 or 2, and then that contract manager was actually able to go in and basically create the other 35, 40 templates herself. So that's something that really doesn't require much hand-holding and is very, very intuitive. So so you can really shape that template library to the nuanced needs of your individual company and your different teams. So yeah, that's a really good question on that. And we have 1 minute left. So here's a great question that came in, and I think we should definitely field this one. Why should I use a CLM instead of just a system with a repository?
Yeah, great question. And Matt, if you want to answer, I'll save you some time. But I think the distinction between a basic repository and a CLM tool is that a CLM is preparing you for the next stage. Obviously, it's important to have all of your contracts in one repository, but what's beyond that? Like some of the things that we were talking about, different growth stages within a company, different diligence projects, and God forbid, even a disaster where maybe you have a data breach. You have to provide notice to maybe all of your customers within a 24-hour period. It's imperative to have access to the data within the agreements. And that's just not something that a repository on its own can accomplish. You need kind of that all-encompassing solution that's going to give you that ready and immediate access into those key clauses, key obligations within your executed agreements, and then additionally help you close that loop between contracts that are existing, living in your repository, and then the new contracts that you're trying to get signed so that you don't encounter any problems in the future as you continue to build better agreements and greater efficiency as an organization.
Yes, indeed. And so with that, we ran about a minute over, so I apologize for that, but I thought it was worth getting into that question. And if you do want to see about our repository and how to leverage your contracts and your data, both pre-signature and post-signature, to our previous point, definitely reach out to us. I think you should have our emails via the GoToWebinar link. So do reach out to us if you're customer success at LinkSquares.com. And if you're a prospect, definitely reach out via the website or at sales@linksquares.com. And we'd love to get you into the platform and see what we're all about. So we had a wonderful time and look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. All right. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.